Hi, I'm Giovanni Campea of the Movie Blog, and this is my quick 3-minute review of the new film Shooter. Now, Shooter is based on the Stephen Hunter novel Point of Impact from about 10 years ago, I think, and stars Mark Wahlberg and Danny Glover. Mark Wahlberg plays a military sniper specialist who, kills people from a mile away with his gun, who is, while on a mission 3 years ago, is betrayed by the military. Coming back home after this betrayal, he's disillusioned with his whole belief system in his country and in the military, and he starts to live a life in exile up in the mountains and in the woods. 3 years later, he's tracked down by government agent Danny Glover and called into service once more, only to be betrayed once again and find out the whole mission they recruited him for was one big setup in order to frame him for an assassination attempt. Now, all this stuff is given away in the trailer, so I'm not giving away any spoilers. Let me say this, on the positive side of Shooter, surprisingly enough, is actually the performance of Mark Wahlberg. For the first 5 minutes of the film, I was a little disillusioned and a little upset with his performance because it's the same Mark Wahlberg that we pretty much see in every film. But it quickly dawned on me that although it's the same guy he's always played, in this particular circumstance, that worked. The character he played called for Mark Wahlberg to play the character that way. And I pretty quickly got the gist that this works, and it worked actually quite well. Also on the positive side, even though the idea of a guy who just lays in the grass and fires guns while standing completely still doesn't sound very exciting, I gotta tell you, some of the combat moments in this film are actually quite exhilarating. And the most exhilarating ones aren't even the ones where he's running around and blowing up stuff, but rather just sitting still and doing what he does best, being a sniper. I found a lot of the information and stuff they talked about was pretty good and pretty entertaining, even if it's not completely accurate, and I have no idea because I'm not a military sniper. Also on the good side is that for at least the first half of the film moves at a pretty decent pace. And you know what? The casting in this film is actually pretty good. And I'm not even talking about Wahlberg or Glover, but really the whole cast of characters, all the little people who were put in their place to fill out the story, they were actually cast quite well. On the bad side of Shooter, and this is where we're going to go into it. First of all, and I'm really shocked about how many films I end up saying this about, but the film is too long. It really is too long. It's just over 2 hours. And I'm not going to say the movie should have been an hour and a half, but if they had cut about 20 minutes out of this film, it really would have picked up the pace of the film. A lot of the stuff that was in there was just dead wood and didn't need to be there. It just unnecessarily complicated things. And they also had, I don't think this is a spoiler, they have an ending after the ending that was just pointless. It didn't need to be there, and it just kind of seemed really stupid. Also, I've always said that I kind of like it when they just don't show black and white, good and evil, but shades of gray. But every once in a while, it's good to have a movie that is just a fun shoot 'em up, good guys and bad guys. But even if you're going to have one of those types of movies, don't make the bad guys so ridiculous. And let me give you a hint about what I'm talking about here. There's one scene in the movie, and you'll see what I'm talking about if you go to see Shooter, where a couple of the bad guys are sitting around drinking champagne and acting like Snidely Whiplash or the villain from the 1920s black and white movies who just tied a damsel in distress onto the railroad tracks, and he's standing there with his black hat, curling his mustache. And that's what these guys were. These couple of bad guys are sitting down, drinking champagne, and basically going, "Mwah, we're so evil. Isn't it wonderful to be evil? It's cool being evil." Like, it was just so over the top, and they made the bad guys so bad that it just lost any sense of even quasi-believability and became a bit of an annoyance throughout the film. The movie is too long. There were too many quote-unquote plot twists, and a couple of them were just completely unbelievable. The movie, after the first half, really loses its pace, and it starts to get mired down in unnecessary footage and unnecessary scenes with a couple of unnecessary characters. Overall, because of all the strengths I said at first, I actually kind of like Shooter. It's a fun little afternoon matinee movie. Just don't expect too much. On the scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give Shooter a 6. On the scale of no go and row, I'm going to say go. For the Movie Blog, I'm John Campea.